On a clear September morning, Athena slowly approached the imposing school gates. She was 12, and on this day she was about to start studying in a new place. Her crisp white blouse, school backpack, and neatly braided hair highlighted her readiness for this new chapter. She felt a slight nervousness. This was her first school after moving, and she didn't know anyone here. Stopping at the gate, Athena took a deep breath, preparing to step through the doors of her new school and perhaps meet new friends. But just as she took a step forward, a guard blocked her path, a tall man with a stern look and his arms crossed. His gaze was cold and unfriendly, and Athena instantly felt her heart tighten. She hadn't expected such a look, one that conveyed not just curiosity or caution, but something unpleasantly hostile. "Where are you headed?" the guard snapped, holding her gaze as if measuring whether she was important enough to enter. Athena felt embarrassed. She didn't know why, but she suddenly felt uncomfortable. A thought flashed through her mind. Maybe she'd come to the wrong gate. Or perhaps there was a special entrance for students. The guard's voice pulled her out of her thoughts. "Did you hear me?" he repeated more insistently. "I'm asking you, where are you going?" His words sounded almost accusatory, and Athena, flustered, struggled to respond. I came to school," she replied quietly, gripping the straps of her backpack as if it might shield her from his unfriendly tone. The guard squinted, his expression unfriendly, even hostile. He looked Athena up and down, and it was clear her answer hadn't satisfied him. Sensing his distrust, Athena decided to take out her enrollment papers from her backpack, hoping to confirm her right to be here. She thought it might dispel his suspicions, but the guard didn't even glance at the document. Instead, he scoffed, crossing his arms. "You don't belong here," he said dismissively, turning his head to a group of other students who were calmly walking by, entering the building without any obstacles. Athena didn't know what to say, but it was obvious the guard saw her as someone foreign, not one of them. "But I'm supposed to be here. This is my school now," Athena said quietly, feeling a growing anxiety within her. Her words had no effect on the guard. "I said, you don't belong here." His voice was harsh and relentless. "Don't even think about trying to go around me, understand?" Athena felt tears start to fill her eyes, but she stubbornly kept her gaze on the guard, hoping he might change his mind. However, he didn't soften. In fact, his expression only grew harsher. Other children and parents walked by, some casting curious glances at her, but no one stopped to ask why she was being held up. Athena felt utterly alone, lost, and humiliated. She had always known the world could be unfair, but she hadn't expected to confront it face to face on her very first day of school. She stood at the gate, unsure of what to do. She looked at her phone and thought about her father, the school principal, about whom the guard clearly knew nothing. Athena clutched her phone in her hand, wondering if she should call her father and tell him what had happened. She didn't want to seem weak, but her first day at this new school wasn't going at all as she'd hoped. She wiped away the tears that had started to form, trying to hide her distress from the guard. She tried to tell herself that maybe there'd been some kind of mistake. Perhaps he simply didn't know that she was a student here since she was new, but something in his tone and look told her it wasn't just a misunderstanding. "Let me show you again," Athena said timidly, pulling her enrollment papers from her backpack. "Here's the document confirming that I was accepted to this school." But the guard didn't even look at the paper. He stared at her with the same expression, cold, indifferent, and full of prejudice. To him, the paper meant no more than any other scrap of paper. He didn't care what was written on the document the girl was holding out, her eyes already filling with tears. Papers, huh? He sneered, as though her words were some kind of joke. You think a piece of paper makes any difference? I know exactly who you are, and that's all I need to know. The guard's words sounded like a sentence. His indifference was as icy as the autumn wind cutting through her. Athena felt fear and pain rising inside her. She couldn't understand why someone she was seeing for the first time judged her with such cruelty. She tried to explain why she needed to enter, but every time his answer was the same. No. He blocked her way as if he had already decided she truly didn't belong here. I need to speak to the principal, Athena finally said with despair in her voice. She wanted him to understand that she wasn't about to give up, that she had a right to be here, that she was just a child who needed to learn and shouldn't be facing such difficulties. The guard, barely suppressing a mocking smile, leaned closer and, lowering his voice, said, "The principal? You think he's interested in people like you? Don't make me laugh, girl. You really think your principal wants someone like you here?" He glanced at the other students walking by. People like you aren't wanted here. The guard's words were painful and humiliating. Athena realized that he wasn't just refusing to let her in. He was also trying to strip her of her confidence and her right to be here. She felt how his unjust treatment cut through her like a sharp knife. She had never experienced anything like this before. Athena froze, feeling completely defenseless. She tried to hold back her tears, but she could feel the anger building inside her. She wasn't just hurt. She felt that she had been treated unfairly, undeservedly. Despite her young age, she knew that what was happening was wrong. Around her, it seemed no one noticed. Adults and children walked by, occupied with their own business, paying no attention to the girl standing at the gate, facing an insurmountable obstacle in the form of this guard. Athena struggled to keep herself composed, but deep down she made a decision. She would not give up. Standing at the gate, Athena felt pain and resentment filling her heart. The guard's words echoed in her ears, but her determination only grew stronger. She knew she could no longer endure such humiliation, and she needed someone who could help her restore justice. Weighing all the pros and cons, Athena decided to call her father, who was the principal of this school and surely knew the best way to handle the situation. Dialing the number, she summoned the courage to tell her father everything that had happened at the gate. Her voice trembled slightly, but there was a firmness in it. Her father listened to her without interrupting, and she felt his support, which gave her strength. He asked her to wait a little while and said he would come to the gate himself soon. While Athena waited, her mind was filled with doubts and worries. She wondered, why had this man treated her so unfairly? Why did he feel he had the right to judge her, knowing nothing about her or her story? Her sense of injustice was so strong that she could barely hold back tears, but an inner voice told her to stay strong. Finally, after a few minutes, Athena noticed her father approaching the gate in the distance. He walked with a confident stride, tall, composed, and dressed in a formal suit. His face showed seriousness and resolve, qualities Athena knew and respected in him. When he reached the gate, the guard, not expecting the administration to arrive so early, tensed slightly, watching the man approach him confidently. "Excuse me, are you the principal of this school?" the guard asked, slightly confused, realizing he had been unexpectedly summoned by his superior. "Yes, I am the principal of this school," the man replied firmly, not taking his eyes off the guard. He glanced briefly at his daughter, then looked back at the guard. and I would like to understand why you denied my daughter entry into the school." The guard's surprise was visible. He hadn't expected that the girl he had stopped so rudely would turn out to be the principal's daughter. Panic flashed in the guard's mind, but he tried to stay calm. "Oh, sir, I didn't know she was your daughter. I was just doing my duty, making sure that no outsiders enter the school." He began to justify himself, but his voice no longer carried its former confidence. Athena's father, unimpressed by his excuses, looked closely at the guard and asked calmly, "And what made you think she was an outsider? She showed you her enrollment document, which confirms her place here. Or do you have special instructions that allow you to stop children without visible reason?" The guard realized he couldn't explain his behavior, which now seemed absurd and unjustifiable even to him. He felt that all his excuses sounded foolish and, moreover, understood that he had put himself in a difficult position. I really didn't know," he mumbled, lowering his gaze. "It was a misunderstanding, sir, just a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" Athena's father repeated with a hint of irony. "A misunderstanding would be if you had simply asked for her papers and then let her in. But you decided that you have the right to judge who deserves to be in this school and who doesn't. This isn't just a mistake. It's a display of prejudice that I will not tolerate within my institution." The guard felt cold sweat on his forehead, realizing that his actions were now turning against him. The principal's words were strict and impartial, and he understood that his mistake left no room for further excuses. The guard stood there, unable to look the principal in the eye, feeling his confidence and authority dissolve under the principal's cold, stern gaze. It seemed to him that he was on the verge of losing his job, and a sense of fear took root within him. He understood that blocking Athena's way had been a serious mistake, but his pride still kept him from fully admitting his fault. The principal shifted his gaze from the guard to Athena, then back to the guard, and his voice held a note of calm determination. "I want you to understand," he began, "that in our school, as in any educational institution, every student has equal rights, regardless of skin color, background, or any other factors. Your duty is to ensure their safety and comfort, not to judge who belongs here and who doesn't. Your actions are out of line with our school's values, and such behavior is unacceptable." Sensing the tension rise, the guard tried to say something in his defense. "I'm sorry, sir. It really wasn't my intention. I wanted to make sure everything was under control." But the principal interrupted him, his voice soft but firm. "Control does not mean prejudice or the abuse of power. It is a responsibility to every child who walks through our school doors. Today, you failed in that responsibility. My daughter could have been in your place had you approached your duties with respect and understanding. Instead, you displayed prejudice and rudeness." The guard finally realized that excuses would no longer help. Reluctantly, he lowered his head and mumbled an apology. "I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, Athena. I didn't think. I was wrong." The principal nodded, accepting the apology, but his face remained stern and composed. "Apologies are a start, but we need action to prevent similar situations in the future. I require you to undergo additional training on student relations and ethics, and if I see this behavior repeated, it will be your last day working at this school." Turning to his daughter, the principal smiled gently, placing a hand on her shoulder. He was proud of her resilience and that she hadn't been afraid to stand up for herself, even in a difficult situation. "Let's go, Athena. Your first day shouldn't have started with such trials, but remember, justice will always prevail." No one can take away your right to education and respect. Athena smiled at her father and glanced at the guard, who now looked embarrassed and lost. She felt a mixture of relief and pride that her father had stood up for her and placed justice first. In that moment, she understood that her strength lay in truth, and she could always count on support. Together with her father, she walked into the school, feeling she had learned an important lesson that would stay with her forever. This day marked not only the beginning of her studies, but also the realization that even small victories over injustice could make the world around her a better place.